So hey guys, welcome back. It is San of So San Ward. I know it's been a while, I've been MIA, but I'm coming to you today with a topic that is just murder and mystery here in America. Injustice, folks, continues within the shadows of the system in this country. And this is a story of a Caucasian young lady by the name of Brooke Skylar Richardson. The headline states that she was found not guilty of murdering her newborn baby after prom. Why don't people believe her? Is the title. And there she is. And there's the title. So I'm not making this up. This is for real. I just can't believe it. This is stuff you see on Lifetime movie channel, but we know those stories that are seen on Lifetime are actually, in fact, based upon true stories. Most of them are, if not all. So let's get into this unbelievable story about a young lady. And by the way, this story was done 2 years ago. But this is a recent article. I received this magazine in the mail last night, and I just stumbled upon this article today as I was reading through it. And I was stunned, shocked, bewildered, outraged. I was so unbelievably just completely turned off at the serious injustices within this country. And this case just really did it for me, because this is a baby, guys. This is a helpless, tiny human being, fragile, that needs someone's love, care, and attention. And instead, it was done and handled in the worst possible way you can think of. Very dark, very sinister, very sadistic. So we're going to talk about the clear evidences that were somehow mysteriously overlooked that rendered Brooke Skylar, Richardson, a not guilty plea. It's mind-boggling, because as I was reading this story, from the beginning, I realized she's guilty, because it just didn't make sense. The story she gave didn't make sense. Things just weren't adding up. And as things weren't adding up, I went ahead and highlighted just those very things throughout the article of that story that just didn't add up. And so we're going to talk about these evidences that were clearly overlooked. And we're going to also identify why it was overlooked, the motive behind the murder. We're going to cover it all in today's video. So let's get into it. It says here, it was 2017. Deep into summer, when a popular high school cheerleader from the nice side of town was charged with killing an infant. The county sheriff's office arrested 18-year-old Brooke Skylar Richardson, claiming that after hiding her pregnancy, she gave birth, set fire to the baby, and buried it in her backyard. Skylar faced multiple felonies, including aggravated murder, involuntary manslaughter, child endangerment, and abuse of a corpse. So, let's get into the clearly overlooked evidence that proves that Skylar is in fact guilty as sin. First thing I notice that brings about a contradiction to one of her statements is this one that was given by her licensed professional OBGYN, a Dr. William Andrew, who told her that she was about 32 weeks. So apparently her mother or somebody must have taken her to the doctor, and the doctor let her know at that point in time, after examining that she's about 32 weeks pregnant. Now let's move on. this gets very interesting. Now let's read into her story of what happened. She said, it says that Skylar danced but didn't drink at the prom. So mind you, she did all of this to her baby after the prom. Skylar danced but didn't drink, and she didn't stay long. She wasn't feeling well and had Brandon take her home, the guy she was dating. The guy she was dating at that moment in time. She wasn't feeling well and Brandon took her home early. A kiss goodnight, and the big night was over. The next day, she had intense stomach cramps that only got worse. By nighttime, they were so bad that she nearly collapsed when she tried to stand up. She didn't think she was in labor. She thought she had months left in her pregnancy. How could she think that she had months left in her pregnancy when I can rewind that I have highlighted here? Her doctor told her that she is 32 weeks along. Okay? So how could she think that she had many months more to go? And no way possible was she giving birth in that very moment. She said, let's continue. She went to the bathroom, sat on the toilet, and felt that something needed to come out. Sat on the toilet, and her words, felt that something needed to come out. Your doctor, now let's go back, told you that you are 32 weeks along, meaning you only have 8 more weeks to go. You were experiencing these excruciating pain. You went and sat on the toilet and you felt like something needed to come out. Hello, you're not a 2-year-old child. You're an 18 years old young lady who was brought up with great education in the uppity neighborhood. I'm sure you know A from Z. I'm sure you clearly knew the baby was coming. Okay? And you knew, quite frankly, that in fact, you did not have months before the baby were to arrive. You were told you were 32 weeks along, meaning you were 8 weeks. And who knows at what point in the story did all of that happen? It could have been just about that very 8 weeks later. Okay? So when all of that prom stuff happened, it could have been the 8 weeks later that from when the doctor told her that she was 32 weeks along. Okay? So incredible. So that is number 2, that which contradicts with evidence number 1, the doctor telling her that she's 32 weeks along. All right. So the baby, in fact, was the one that needed to come. I mean, that's a given. Come on, girl. You're not stupid. All right, folks, let's move right along. So she also went on to say that after the baby slipped from her hands and fell and into the toilet. I mean, the story is so just far-fetched. It's so out there. It's just like, really? You really think we're stupid? When you listen to it and, well, in fact, read it at this point. So she said the baby slipped from her hand. She decided then, and she checked the baby. The baby was dead. The baby wasn't breathing. The baby wasn't moving. That it was stillborn. Okay? That's what the article says. Stillborn. Mind you guys, if a baby is stillborn, you're not going to get labor pain and labor contractions. The baby's not going to be pushing its way out of your womb to be born. A stillborn baby does not do that. Okay? The baby would, in fact, if it's stillborn, dead. You wouldn't have contractions. They would have to cut you open and remove the stillborn baby. But that wasn't the case. Baby Annabelle, as she named the baby, after she burned and then buried the baby after she claimed the baby was completely dead. How did you know the baby was completely dead? Are you a medical expert? Perhaps the baby just needed its lungs cleared of the fluids or whatever. She also stated that the umbilical cord wasn't attached. Okay, if this is what makes it so crazy. If the umbilical cord wasn't attached to the baby, that means the baby wasn't getting nutrient for the months it was living inside of you. So if it was stillborn inside of you, again, the baby you wouldn't have had those contractions for the baby to come out. Okay, story just doesn't add up. So incredible. But let's look at it this way as well. She also engaged in negligence to an unborn baby growing within her womb. She did not provide the baby with the prenatal care necessary for it to be able to develop fully and in a healthy manner. So that is one charge in which they could have also gotten her on, was for negligence of an unborn child growing in her womb. She deliberately hid the pregnancy for the entire 9 months that she was pregnant. And you're going to find out soon enough why she hid the pregnancy, why she was ashamed of it. Okay, so you pronounced the baby dead because somehow you're some expert. Okay, she said she was sure the baby was dead. And if you were so sure of that the baby was dead, it's one or two things. Either you killed the baby and you knew for sure the baby was dead. That's the only way you could be certain. Or, okay, or you are a trained expert and you just know what to do to pronounce an individual, a human being, as dead without having the expertise to do so. Well, no. First of all, why didn't you attempt CPR? Why? Oh, second of all, why didn't you call the paramedics? If you thought that the baby was dead, why didn't you call paramedics? Why was it that your first thought was to burn and then bury your baby? Sick, really sick, very disturbing, so disturbing, guys. Now, if I was the prosecutor on that case 2 years ago, I would have said, now, Skylar, darling, if that was your mother or your father or your brother lying on that floor, not breathing, would you have also burned them and buried them in the backyard? I'm sure she would have said, no, of course I wouldn't. I would have called the paramedics. So then why didn't you render the same kindness to baby Annabelle? And we're going to get to why. Guys, this was all premeditated. And I believe firmly that she wasn't in on this solely, that her parents, her mother and her father, aided and abetted her. And you'll learn quickly why. Now, as the story went along, it talked about, mentioned a Tracy Johnson. Tracy Johnson, that's a name that sounds like a black woman, I said. Whose son's name is Trey. Trey sounds like a black man's name. I don't know any white person with the name Trey. I've never heard of a white person with the name Trey. So then I said, oh wait, before I get into that, before I get into the name, here's what allowed me to put two and two together. After she said she thought she had months left in her pregnancy, she made a statement just below that she said what came out, she went to the bathroom, sat on the toilet, and felt that something needed to come out. What came out was a baby girl who was shockingly white. Shockingly white. Shockingly white. Should I repeat that? Shockingly white. Why was it such a shock? And that's when I said, hold on. It must be, the father must be black. So when they mentioned further on in the article, this Tracy Johnson and this Trey, who is in fact was the father of the baby she was carrying, that she burned and murdered, that in fact, he's a black young man. So here's the motive. The family's racist. The town is racist. The town of Carlisle, Ohio is racist. The jury was racist to have let off an obvious murderer who concealed her pregnancy for the entire 9 months duration, okay, and premeditated on how they were going to get rid of it because its blood is black. The baby is black, and they do not want anyone to know that their daughter is carrying the child of a black young man, and that the life growing within her is that of a black young man. So which means as long as the blood, there's a mix of black in the blood, then the baby is black, period. Let's get rid of it. So they plotted along with their sick daughter and did what they did to poor baby Annabelle. Annabelle was dealt an unjust fate by hateful, racist, sinister, and sadistic individuals. Now let's go on. It is the same thing that was done to black folks during slavery time. They were burnt and buried. It's the same unjust fate that was delivered to baby Annabelle. It's the same unjust fate that was delivered to Emmett Till. It was the same unjust fate that was delivered to Trayvon Martin, and his offender got away. Do you guys remember that story in Florida? Yes. So this clearly shows the racism and the injustice within the American system. Obviously, it is rather prevalent, very prejudicial, very preferential, okay? And I promise you that if that was a black young lady, they would have thrown everything in the kitchen sink at her. She wouldn't have seen daylight ever again. But because she was white, and she did them, the racist white folks of America, a favor. They give her a nice slap on the wrist with only 3 years probation. Guys, that's all she got. She got let off and found not guilty when the evidence were clearly there that she murdered her baby. She not only murdered her baby, but she gave birth to the baby, probably drowned the baby in the toilet water, probably suffocate the baby first, and then she burned and buried her baby in her backyard. Instead of calling the paramedics, instead of applying CPR. I'm sure they taught her CPR in that uppity neighborhood in which she lived in. I'm sure they did. But now, guys, let's add injury to insult, okay? After it was all said and done and she got let off and found not guilty, here's a statement that Ashley made herself. As Ashley describes it, it's a small community, Carlisle in Ohio. Nothing like this ever happens in Carlisle, and people love drama. They wanted the story to be as crazy as possible. The scandal of it all, frankly, was fun. That was her statement. That the scandal of it all was fun. Murdering her baby, in other words, was fun. Okay, her parents aiding and abetting her to murder, to burn, and then bury baby Annabelle was fun. I'm not making this up, guys. Here it is verbatim. Here it is verbatim in that second sentence highlight. There it is. There it is right there. The scandal of it all, frankly, was fun. Incredible. Let's continue, shall we? So clearly, this young lady has no heart. Neither do her parents. I believe they were in on it. I believe they aided in that. I'm sure they knew that she wasn't getting her period. They had her menstrual cycle. They had this whole story of her having some eating disorder. I don't believe it. I think they just used that to cover up what she did. And they knew all along, and they were planning on how to get rid of the baby, on how to murder the baby. Okay? And they knew exactly that they had the jury in their pockets. They had no fear. That's why when she was given a plea bargain, she didn't take it, because she knew without a shadow of a doubt, even though the evidence was clear that she murdered her baby, that she would have gotten off because they were racist. The jury was racist. The judge was probably racist if he wasn't black. The family and her friends were racist. The whole town probably is racist. And therefore, baby Annabelle was not served justice. She rests in her grave where she is without an ounce of justice being delivered for her murder. And so guess what? So, Skylar went on to say that there are nightmares after 2 years now And then she also mentioned that there are people who form Facebook groups bashing her, calling her name, saying they're going to haunt and taunt that murderer for the rest of her life. People are making death threats to her, and I can understand why. You just murdered an innocent baby, a helpless baby. You not only harmed, but you burned and then murdered and then buried your baby in your backyard. I can understand people's outrage. I can understand people's upset. I can understand people's disgust and hatred for such an individual. You can literally look at someone like that as a monster, not a human being. Because no human being would do that to their own baby at that. So she said after two years now, because it's 2019, the story, the situation happened in 2017. She said there are nightmares and anxiety attacks and debilitating flashbacks. Of course, baby Annabelle is probably haunting you in your sleep. Your guilt, your conscience is haunting you for the wrong, the evil that you did to an innocent baby. You could have given up the baby for adoption. She said she only wished that she had done things differently. Yes, there are several things you could have done. You could have given the baby up for adoption. You could have called the paramedics when the baby came out. You could have tried CPR. If you really loved and cared about your baby, your first thought wouldn't have been to burn and then bury your baby. It would have been to call paramedics and apply CPR and put your mouth to your baby's mouth and draw out any fluid that may be in there preventing the baby, if that was the case. But I doubt if that was the case. This was cold-blooded murder. This was premeditated murder. And the murderer got away scotch-free. Why? Because she's white and the baby is black that she carried within her. Her statement alone proved what the motive was. She said what came out was a baby girl who was shockingly white. Here it is, guys, verbatim. I am not making this up. I'm not. That second highlight. What came out was a baby girl who was shockingly white. There you have it. So that was the motive. She was ashamed. Her parents were ashamed. They hate black people. They're racist. And so they did the unthinkable and burned and buried an innocent baby. That of her own. That is sick. That is twisted. That is psychopathic. Unbelievable, guys. So anywho, guys, that's a wrap. This is So Sandward. Thank you guys so much for chiming in, for watching. Now that I'm back, I will ensure that I stay updated and post more videos more often. However, we have to bring light to the injustices of the world to ensure that situations such as what happened to baby Annabelle doesn't go quietly in the night. It doesn't get swept under the rug. It doesn't get overlooked. That we hold these people responsible for their evil and unjust actions. In fact, this case should be reopened because the evidence are clear here that she is in fact guilty of murdering her baby. She burned and then buried her baby. There was evidence proven that she burned, the baby was burned. So that alone is enough evidence. How was it overlooked? How was all of that overshadowed? Motive was clearly there. And quite frankly, the reason why they didn't mention that the baby's father was black was because they didn't want to make it clear that was the motive behind her and her mother and father aiding and abetting her to murder her baby, as they did so savagely. Well, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you in my next video. If you like what I share here, give it a thumbs up, like it, subscribe, comment, share, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you can be notified whenever I post the next video. I'll catch you in the next one. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of this day. Bye now.